I believe we are back to doing these weekly, which should at least be a little bit more manageable. Welcome back to my channel. I'm Traben. These are my tomes, and you probably have a good sense of what's going to go on in this video. We've established a kind of routine around here. I'll talk about the manga, then I'll talk about the graphic novels, then I'll talk about the book. Singular, because we're only doing a week this time. Before we get started, down in the comments, let me know what you've read this week. What are your recommendations? What should I be looking at for the summer break? And if you've read any of the titles I've looked at this week, give me your thoughts below. Let's dive into the manga with The Summer Hikaru Died number 5, which continues what the mangaka has described as the town mystery arc, I believe, and kind of wraps that up into a third thing that's going to proceed from here. I really liked this town mystery arc. I didn't know at the outset of this comic how this premise was going to last as long as it does, especially because they play their hand so early with revealing what Hikaru actually is. I thought that was going to be something that was teased out over a longer time frame, but I really did like this town mystery arc. It gave a better sense of the wider world and some of the machinations that are going on within the town. This manga reminds me of When They Cry, the type of mystery, like town mystery goings on, some sort of supernatural element, some sort of curse. That being said, I did find a couple of points in this particular volume a little slow, so it did end up as a 4 out of 5. If you are in the market for a summer horror manga read, I think this is probably your best bet of what's currently being published. Not only does it have a good mystery at its core, but also a focus on relationships and some really deep philosophical questions on the nature of individuality and what does it mean to be you. Check it out if that sounds like your vibe. Chainsaw Man Volume 21 is starting to show a little bit of the cracks in this second major arc of the series. While I am not myself aware of exactly what the end is going to be, I do know that there are several people dissatisfied with the ending, and given where we are right now, I can maybe see where some of those criticisms are going to come into play, because we have Denji not learning anything, not changing any way. It seems like we're going through exactly the same motions as part 1. Prior to this volume, I was enjoying the different direction this was taking and going for more of this interesting romance, especially with a character that kind of alternates personalities. Found that really compelling, but this one lampshaded the idea that Denji is just completely unchanged. Really reminds me of the main character of the Magicians series, which I have yet to finish, because every time I read one of those, despite enjoying the fantasy element of it, I absolutely cannot stand how the protagonist is just never satisfied with his life. Denji's case is a little bit more nuanced. At least he himself recognizes this as a character flaw and is struggling with the idea that he should be happy and he should be moving on, he should be improving. He daydreams about telling people that he has matured and grown, but then he ends up just groveling and doing what he's done the entire time, and that's very frustrating. That being said, I am still enjoying the plot of the story despite my frustrations with Denji, and we did get the major plot twist for this second part, which it was no Makima. Again, because this is kind of a rehash of part 1 in a lot of its styling and character beats, that is lowering it in my estimation. I am, of course, going to pick up the last 2 volumes and see where all of this is heading. I am invested. And as I mentioned in my last review, this is filling a niche of horror comedy that I don't have a good alternative for at the moment, or to my knowledge, ever. So the fact that it is filling that niche, I think, is still fun and engaging and keeps it interesting, but it is starting to show some of the problems with the direction this arc is heading, because it is so similar to the direction it was heading in part 1. I read Yaiba Samurai Legend Volume 4, an omnibus edition that contains, I think, 3 like normal manga volumes worth of content. Like if you look at this, it's super thick, like 500 pages, I want to say. And it is the same as I've been saying the whole time with this series. Classic 80s action manga, very much makes me feel nostalgic for the kinds of things I was watching back in the 90s. Just goofy, lighthearted, very little nuance to this comic. There's not an overly complicated magic system. The villains are just villains. They're not complex or fleshed out in any way. And there's something to be said for the simplicity of that, of just being able to enjoy a comic and not have to worry about its deeper philosophical ramifications. I know when I pick up a copy of Yaiba that I'm going to have a fun time with it. It's going to be light and silly and fun, and that's exactly what this one did. It does have that like 80s and 90s style raunchy humor that kids comics for some reason had. I understand that Japan is far more liberal with the idea of sexuality and a little bit more conservative when it comes to violence, typically. I never found it super offensive, but it is a little off-putting when this child character is trying to sneak a peek at someone in the hot springs, for example. It's a product of its time, but if that is a deal breaker for you, know that that is in here. Pick this up if you are in the mood for like 90s anime nostalgia, or if you're a big fan of Gosho Aoyama and Detective Conan and want to see some of his other work. I read Akane-Banashi number 16, which is an odd one in that it includes an earlier draft of a story from the mangaka that never went to publication. So only about, I'd say half of this volume is actually Akane-Banashi, and most of that is not about her. We are doing an extended flashback to like her master's upbringing. How did he get into Rakugo? And what is his relationship with this other main Rakugoka and their history together. It's a necessary story and one that I feel is really laying the groundwork for the next phase. There is another time skip at the end of the section of Akane-Banashi in here, which is going to jump us 3 years into the future. And I feel like that choice is being made because where Akane finds herself right before that time skip is probably not the most compelling story to tell. When she matures and moves past what's currently happening, that will probably get some more of the compelling story that we set up here. The secondary story is fine. It's about 2 high school kids that are developing a comedy routine with each other. I found it a little bit weird because they're drawing from real life events and they're making these jokes about things that happen to one of them that involves a girl from the crowd who's obviously very uncomfortable, and like I didn't find it funny. Humor is largely a cultural thing. There are definitely aspects of Japanese comedy that just do not resonate with me at all. That aside, the Akane-Banashi stuff in here is excellent. Some of the most important information that we're getting, despite not being about our main character, creating some parallels with certain characters that I feel are going to be incredibly important down the road. I gave Akane-Banashi volume 16 4 out of 5 because I wasn't jiving with the side story. Actual Akane-Banashi stuff in here would be 5 out of 5. Moving on to the comics, I read Something is Killing the Children volume 9, which, similar to Akane-Banashi, is a flashback. But unlike Akane-Banashi, our main character is still involved in the flashback, at least the initial flashback. There's a flashback within the flashback that's even further and has a lot more parallels with what's happening in Akane-Banashi. But I digress. We have been gearing up to hear about Erika's mentor, Jessica, for a while now. We know that there is some sort of history between her and another one of the leaders, Cecilia. Sometimes they are at each other's throats. Sometimes they're very supportive of each other. What's going on? And we get some of those answers in here. If you've not read Something is Killing the Children before, it tends to work out in 3-volume blocks. So I suspect that what we are laying the foundation for here is probably not going to resolve until the end of possibly volume 11. That way, when they collect it into the deluxe editions tell one complete arc, which is very clean. but can be very frustrating when you're trying to read through the story. Just like Akane-Banashi, this flashback serves to not only flesh out these secondary characters, but also to give some context into the world that Erika finds herself in, and more of what's been going on behind the scenes, so you understand character motivations of things that have happened before, and likely what is going to proceed from this volume. I found this a very humanizing story, a very grounded story. It was incredibly sad. They do lampshade it a couple of times. They do go a little bit too hard with the, like, what's the worst that could happen? And you're like, I know what the worst is that's going to happen. I know how it's going to end. But I never found it frustrating as a flashback, because there is still so much mystery baked into what exactly occurred at this location between Jessica and Cecilia, what happened there with Erika and Jessica, and how that is going to play into the larger story that we've been telling here. I remember early into Something That Is Killing the Children's run, a lot of people complained that they felt like it didn't need to continue. It should have just been a 1 or 2 volume comic and be done. But I love this world, and I love reading everything about it. I feel like this is some of the most compelling writing, because we are so invested in these characters, despite them not having a large presence in the comic up to this point necessarily. Their influence on the characters around them has been so great, and so it's really fascinating to see this backstory and not know exactly where it's heading. 5 out of 5. I read Knights Volume 3, which is Season 2, Part 1, according to the cover. And this one started off a little bit confusing, which I think is par for the course for Knights. I think Knights is honestly best when you really don't have an idea of what's going on. Knights does not hold your hand. The characters don't explain what's happening. They don't tell you the context of what's going on. And so for a lot of this, you just have to kind of go with it. Just vibe with it. It'll be fine. It'll make sense in the end. This is a flashback. There's a theme going on this month to events that were happening in the 70s, which again recontextualizes some of the things we know about characters that are that's happening in 2004, which I believe is where the first and second volume were taking place. It is insane. It has some truly crazy moments that were reminding me of like the conclusion of Full Metal Alchemist for some reason, and it was just super fun. This series is just so bonkers. It's really hard to describe anything that's happening at any time, but it is so entertaining. I'm going to make my usual call outs. If you like Buffy, if you like Fully Cooley, you will probably like this comic. It's like a horror Fully Cooley amalgamation. It's a lot of fun. It's weird. It has some truly shocking moments. Like I said, it doesn't hold your hand. You have to actually think and work out what exactly is going on. I had to go flip back to a couple of different pages, try to put some things together in order to follow the story. And I know some readers are going to find that frustrating, but I find it fascinating, and I think more books should honestly not hold our hands and have to explain everything to us. We need to stop having so many maid and butler moments where characters are telling things to other people that they wouldn't say in real life. Some gruesome moments in here, some really heartbreaking moments in here, especially the end. Another highly recommended comic from me, 5 out of 5. Check it out if you haven't done so yet. Finally, my one book for this week is Eiji Tsuburaya, Master of Monsters. Don't have a lot to say about this one, honestly. It is a biography of Eiji Tsuburaya, who is the founder of Tsuburaya Productions, which is the studio behind a lot of the monster movies you're probably familiar with that come out of Japan, including Godzilla and Mothra, all the stuff from Toho, also Ultraman, Ultra Q, and a lot of war films, honestly. Like, he got his early start in war films. I learned some absolutely fascinating things about the film industry that nobody else cares about. Did you know that 99% of the films shot before World War II in Japan are lost media? I didn't. That's an insane number. Or that the original Godzilla costume weighed 220 pounds, and that was the lighter version, the second one they made. The suit actor had to have a cup of water, a cup of sweat, dumped out at the end of every take, and he ended up losing 20 pounds because of this role. That's insane. Overall, this is a very well researched and entertaining read. Plenty of pictures throughout to illustrate some of the things that they're talking about. Each chapter is punctuated with an essay written by someone in the industry talking about their experience with Tsuburaya or with one of the members of his family, because it kind of became like a family affair. It became a family-run business, so all of his sons were employed by him, and they all, I think his youngest son is now the person running Tsuburaya Imagination. If you are interested in Japanese film, if you're interested in tokusatsu, if you're interested in Godzilla, then this is a good book to read because it gives you a lot of the background of the various creators and the behind the scenes information about the making of several of those films. I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. And that's going to do it for this week. Thanks for coming by as I ramble incoherently about the books that I love and I read over the last week. As always, I hope your reading journey is going well. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe so we can grow this corner of our BookTube community. And until the next one, take care.